For more than 2 decades, Raul had devoted himself body and soul to caring for Sofia, his daughter. A terrible accident that occurred when she was just 10 years old left her paralyzed and robbed her of her childhood, her dreams, and any hope of an ordinary life. But Raul never gave up. Now 70 years old, he lived for her, immersed in a careful and painful routine, where love and duty mixed with an almost unbearable sadness. One morning, to the sound of the alarm clock, Raul woke up feeling the weight of the years in his bones. His body, worn by time, reminded him that he was no longer the same, but his determination remained unbreakable. Sofia, now 35 years old, was all he had. He got up and, with a delicate touch, woke her gently, as he did every day. Her eyes slowly opened, revealing the same innocent expression as when she was a child, as if the years had not passed. Helping her sit in a wheelchair, he guided her to the bathroom. This daily routine was sacred to Raul. Every gesture, every care, he had perfected over the years. He knew exactly how to move her without causing her pain, how to support her, clean her and dress her, all done with almost superhuman patience. And while he prepared breakfast, he took care of every detail, from the way he held the spoon to feed her to the way he looked at her, looking for any sign of change. That day, however, Raul noticed something different. Sofia's eyes seemed more alive, as if they were hiding a secret, and as she looked at the table, he watched, with his heart almost stopping, her feet move slightly under the table. It was only a small movement, a fraction of a second, but it was enough to shake Raul. He could not believe what he had just seen. Breakfast suddenly became a moment of tension, mixed with hope and fear. Had he imagined it? Was his mind playing tricks on him? Despite his inner turmoil, Raul took Sofia out into the garden, where she could enjoy the morning sun, as they did every day. But that day, his mind was not there. He watched Sofia closely, looking for other signs, for any clue that would confirm what he had seen. And as he pushed her wheelchair across the grass, he noticed something subtle. Her fingers were moving slightly, an almost imperceptible tremor that only he, a watchful and devoted father, could perceive. That night, after putting her to bed, Raul lay awake, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, his mind turning over thoughts and memories. Something in him told him that this was not normal. What if Sofia was not completely paralyzed after all? What if the diagnosis was wrong? The idea was both hopeful and terrifying. He loved her so much, the pain of another disappointment could be devastating. However, the thought persisted, growing like a seed planted in his heart. The next day, Raul woke up early, even with the weight of the years and the pain he felt in his body. He knew that the real weight he carried was much deeper. It was the longing for his wife and eldest daughter, who had been taken in the same accident that paralyzed Sofia. His entire life had been rebuilt around Sofia, as if she were the last connection to everything he had lost. But something inside him, a paternal intuition, told him that he should be alert, as if a shadow was warning him of a secret that he could not yet understand. He went to Sofia's room, determined to observe her more closely, to look for clues about the mystery that was beginning to consume him. When he woke her up, he noticed something almost imperceptible, a different glow in her eyes. It was as if Sofia, behind her peaceful expression, hid a secret world, a mystery that Raul didn't know if he was ready to discover. As he helped her to stand up, he saw, once again, an almost involuntary movement of her toes. His mind oscillated between hope and fear, as each small sign reinforced the possibility that something extraordinary could be happening. He tried to calm himself, fighting the urge to question her, to demand answers that perhaps she herself didn't know how to give. But deep down, he knew that he couldn't continue to ignore these signs. Guiding Sofia towards the bathroom, Raul felt the cold floor beneath his feet and, as he walked beside her, he was invaded by an avalanche of feelings and memories. The image of his lost wife and daughter lingered in his mind like a ghost, reminding him of the deep pain and commitment he had made to Sofia. He would protect and care for her, no matter what, and he would not let any doubt or fragile hope shake that promise. And yet, the doubt was there, insistent, pressing on his conscience, awakening him to a new question. What if he had been wrong about Sofia's condition all these years? What if, somehow, she could feel or even communicate more than he imagined? The intensity of this possibility was almost frightening, like a secret waiting to be revealed. Raul decided that he could not ignore these signs. In a mixture of fear and determination, he resolved that he would install cameras throughout the house, something he had never thought of doing. Later that morning, Raul went to Sofia's room, beginning the long daily process of helping her get up, shower, and get dressed. This routine, which he had followed for over 25 years, was an act of love, but also of exhaustion. Upon entering the room, Raul opened the curtains, allowing the soft morning light to fill the room. "Good morning, Sofia," he said, trying to sound cheerful, but Sofia's gaze seemed distant and irritated. She turned her face away, shielding her eyes from the light, and Raul sighed as he noticed the smell of sheets that needed changing. Her hair was tangled, a sign of the long period spent in bed. Patiently, he transferred her to the wheelchair and then carried her to the bathroom. In the shower, he avoided looking too much at the wounds on her skin, the result of the long hours without movement. Sofia let out a small moan, and Raul, hearing it, felt a tightness in his chest, a mixture of pity and concern. After finishing rinsing her, he carefully combed her hair, a gesture he performed with the same precision as always, the result of years of practice. Sofia's eyes were lost, vacant, and she mumbled disjointed words, which Raul tried unsuccessfully to interpret. He took her back to the kitchen, where he offered her breakfast, feeding her slowly, wiping the corners of her mouth whenever necessary. But that day, as he carried out each step of the routine with the same care, a restlessness grew within him. Doubts about his daughter tormented him again, like a silent echo of something he still could not fully understand. After leaving her in the living room to watch television, Raul retired to his bedroom. Feeling an almost instinctive need to seek answers, he pulled out some old boxes from under his bed. The boxes contained relics from the past, photographs, newspaper clippings, and articles about the tragic accident that had changed their lives. When he opened the first box and saw the photos of his late wife and eldest daughter, a searing pain washed over him, bringing to the surface the longing and grief he had learned to bury deep in his heart. Among the memories, he found the newspaper clipping of the accident, which described a car crashing into a truck. Raul's wife was behind the wheel, and Sofia, then a child, was in the back seat, surviving the impact but leaving the hospital with a sentence of paralysis. The memories of the days in the hospital flooded him. He remembered the hope he had fought to maintain in Sofia's tears as she faced pain and fear. He wondered now why, after so many years, these memories made him doubt. Was it just tiredness? Feeling confused, he put the memories back in the boxes, trying to calm his mind. Later, at lunchtime, Raul fed Sofia with the same usual care, until she lay down again in her bed for a short rest. The tension of the morning seemed to give him a strong headache, and he decided to take a nap too. He slept longer than he expected, waking up in the middle of the afternoon with a strange feeling. Sensing that something was out of place, he went to Sofia's room and froze when he realized that the wheelchair was empty. Sofia was not there. Raul's heart raced. Panicked, he ran through the house, calling for her. Finally, when he reached the garden, he saw her, sitting and contemplating the plants with a serene expression, as if everything was completely normal. "Sofia, what are you doing here?" Raul asked, his voice full of nervousness and surprise. Sofia, however, seemed startled by the question, looking at him with obvious confusion, as if she didn't understand the reason for his concern. She tried to answer, but the words came out incoherent, without any meaning, a murmur lost in the air. With a mixture of relief and fear, Raul took Sofia back inside. He tried to disguise the apprehension that was consuming him, placing her in front of the television, where she remained for the rest of the day. But he couldn't get that scene out of his mind. The disturbing thought that Sofia might be faking her condition haunted him like a persistent shadow. He wanted to push that idea away, but it enveloped him, as if it challenged all his beliefs and certainties. What if, after all, Sofia had been lying to him all these years? The doubt became unbearable, growing until he felt he needed to do something to dispel it. The next morning, Raul made a decision. He left Sofia in the care of the nurse who helped them a few times a week and left. He felt anxious, fighting the internal conflict that was eating away at him. He didn't want to distrust his own daughter, but something deep inside him demanded that he seek the truth, even if that truth devastated him. At a store, he bought small hidden cameras that he planned to install around the house, so that he could watch Sofia without her knowing. That night, after Sofia fell asleep, Raul began installing the cameras in strategic spots around the house. He placed one in the living room, one in the hallway, and another in his own bedroom. He connected the cameras to a tablet that he kept next to his bed, allowing him to monitor his daughter at any time. Once the work was done, he turned off all the lights, taking a deep breath. He felt torn between the feeling of guilt for watching Sofia and the need to discover the truth that tormented him so much. Finally, Raul lay down, but sleep seemed distant. Anxiety weighed on his chest, while his eyes remained fixed on the ceiling, trying to prepare himself for whatever discovery he might make. The next morning, when Raul woke up, his first impulse was to check his tablet. With bated breath, he reviewed the recordings from the night. Everything seemed normal. Sofia was still in bed, motionless, her gaze fixed and empty as always. Raul felt a momentary relief, thinking that perhaps he was becoming paranoid. But at the same time, the doubt lingered like a shadow he could not shake. After breakfast, Raul went upstairs to wake Sofia, who was lying there staring at the ceiling. "Good morning, Sofia. It's time to get up," he said, as he opened the curtains to light the room. Sofia blinked against the light, looking confused, and mumbled disjointed words. Raul helped her sit in the wheelchair and took her to the bathroom, where he helped her shower, as he always did. Sofia seemed as passive and distant as usual, oblivious to everything around her. When they were finished, Raul took her to the kitchen, served her breakfast, and then sat her in front of the television before retiring to the bedroom. He felt a little ridiculous for monitoring Sofia, but his suspicion was stronger than his pride. However, when he looked at the tablet, what he saw left him perplexed. As soon as he left the room, Sofia's vacant expression had dropped. Suddenly, she seemed fully conscious, her face relaxed, her eyes alert. With effort, she got up from the chair and, still clumsy, walked to the bathroom. There, in front of the mirror, Sofia touched her own face, running her hands through her hair, as if evaluating her own image after a long time. Then, with calculated precision, she returned to the chair, resuming her lost and distant expression, just in time for Raul's return. Raul watched in disbelief. His eyes could not believe what they were seeing. It was true. All the suspicions he had tried to bury were before his eyes. Sofia was not who he thought she was. But how far did that go? Since when had she been able to move? Had all the suffering and sacrifice of the last 25 years been an elaborate lie? The question echoed in his mind like thunder. He felt anger, hurt, and confusion intertwine, threatening to explode. The urge to light a cigarette, a habit he had given up years ago, resurfaced with force. But he held himself back. Before confronting Sofia, he knew he needed more proof. He needed to understand what was happening. He spent the rest of the day watching Sofia on the recordings, watching her get up cautiously, supporting herself on the furniture, sometimes taking small steps to the kitchen, where she stretched her legs and leaned against the refrigerator. Raul felt suffocated by the revelation. How could he have been deceived for so long? When night fell, Raul took Sofia to the bedroom, helped her lie down, and tucked her in with the same care as always. He wanted answers. He wanted to understand the reason for all of this, but he also knew that exploding would not bring the answers he so desperately needed. During the night, Raul remained awake, mulling over everything he had seen. The memory of the little girl he had known, full of life and innocence, now contrasted painfully with the woman who had apparently been so willing to deceive him in such a cold way. The next morning, the intense anger of the previous night had dissolved, giving way to a feeling of profound sadness. Raul felt as if something had shattered inside him. He wondered how things had gotten to this point, how Sofia, his sweet and cheerful daughter, had become the person he saw now. What could have driven his daughter to keep up such a huge lie? Raul decided that instead of focusing on the deception, he would try to understand the truth that was hidden behind Sofia's facade. And perhaps, by seeking the reason, he would be able to reach something that his distrust had prevented him from seeing. That day, he changed his approach. During lunch, Raul treated Sofia with a different affection, trying to talk to her, asking how she felt and if she needed anything. Sofia, as usual, mumbled a few confused words, but Raul noticed, with redoubled attention, something he hadn't seen before, a hint of sadness in her empty gaze. It was as if Sofia was hiding a deep pain, a hurt that perhaps not even she knew how to express. After lunch, instead of leaving her in front of the television, Raul decided to take her to the garden. There, under the sun, he began to tell her stories from her childhood. He remembered her laughter, the games they played together, the energy she had. He also spoke of her mother, how she loved her, how they had felt her absence since the accident. The words were like a balm to Raul, and, to his surprise, he noticed a single tear sliding down Sofia's face. She didn't say anything, but her gesture, silent and fragile, revealed more than any words could. The next morning, when Raul woke up, his first impulse was to check his tablet. With bated breath, he reviewed the recordings from the night. Everything seemed normal. Sofia was still in bed, motionless, her gaze fixed and empty as always. Raul felt a momentary relief, thinking that perhaps he was becoming paranoid. But at the same time, the doubt lingered like a shadow he could not shake. After breakfast, Raul went upstairs to wake Sofia, who was lying there staring at the ceiling. "Good morning, Sofia. It's time to get up," he said, as he opened the curtains to light the room. Sofia blinked against the light, looking confused, and mumbled disjointed words. Raul helped her sit in the wheelchair and took her to the bathroom, where he helped her shower, as he always did. Sofia seemed as passive and distant as usual, oblivious to everything around her. When they were finished, Raul took her to the kitchen, served her breakfast, and then sat her in front of the television before retiring to the bedroom. He felt a little ridiculous for monitoring Sofia, but his suspicion was stronger than his pride. However, when he looked at the tablet, what he saw left him perplexed. As soon as he left the room, Sofia's vacant expression had dropped. Suddenly, she seemed fully conscious, her face relaxed, her eyes alert. With effort, she got up from the chair and, still clumsy, walked to the bathroom. There, in front of the mirror, Sofia touched her own face, running her hands through her hair, as if evaluating her own image after a long time. Then, with calculated precision, she returned to the chair, resuming her lost and distant expression, just in time for Raul's return. Raul watched in disbelief. His eyes could not believe what they were seeing. It was true. All the suspicions he had tried to bury were before his eyes. Sofia was not who he thought she was. But how far did that go? Since when had she been able to move? Had all the suffering and sacrifice of the last 25 years been an elaborate lie? The question echoed in his mind like thunder. He felt anger, hurt, and confusion intertwine, threatening to explode. The urge to light a cigarette, a habit he had given up years ago, resurfaced with force. But he held himself back. Before confronting Sofia, he knew he needed more proof. He needed to understand what was happening. He spent the rest of the day watching Sofia on the recordings, watching her get up cautiously, supporting herself on the furniture, sometimes taking small steps to the kitchen, where she stretched her legs and leaned against the refrigerator. Raul felt suffocated by the revelation. How could he have been deceived for so long? When night fell, Raul took Sofia to the bedroom, helped her lie down, and tucked her in with the same care as always. He wanted answers. He wanted to understand the reason for all of this, but he also knew that exploding would not bring the answers he so desperately needed. During the night, Raul remained awake, mulling over everything he had seen. The memory of the little girl he had known, full of life and innocence, now contrasted painfully with the woman who had apparently been so willing to deceive him in such a cold way. The next morning, the intense anger of the previous night had dissolved, giving way to a feeling of profound sadness. Raul felt as if something had shattered inside him. He wondered how things had gotten to this point, how Sofia, his sweet and cheerful daughter, had become the person he saw now. What could have driven his daughter to keep up such a huge lie? Raul decided that instead of focusing on the deception, he would try to understand the truth that was hidden behind Sofia's facade. And perhaps, by seeking the reason, he would be able to reach something that his distrust had prevented him from seeing. That day, he changed his approach. During lunch, Raul treated Sofia with a different affection, trying to talk to her, asking how she felt and if she needed anything. Sofia, as usual, mumbled some confused words, but Raul noticed, with redoubled attention, something he hadn't seen before, a hint of sadness in her empty gaze. It was as if Sofia was hiding a deep pain, a hurt that perhaps not even she knew how to express. After lunch, instead of leaving her in front of the television, Raul decided to take her out into the garden. There, under the sun, he began to tell her stories about Sofia's childhood. He remembered her laughter, the games they played together, the energy she had. He also spoke of her mother, how much she loved her, how much they had missed her since the accident. The words were like a balm to Raul, and, to his surprise, he noticed a single tear sliding down Sofia's face. She didn't say anything, but the gesture, silent and fragile, revealed more than any words could. That night, Raul put Sofia to bed more gently than he had on any other day. He tucked her in, turned off the lights, but this time, he didn't worry about the tablet or the recordings. What he wanted now was not proof of the truth, but something more essential. He wanted to reconnect with his daughter, to find that bond he believed was lost. Raul knew that the truth was still hidden, but more than that, he knew that something still held him back from that unconditional love. In the days that followed, Raul devoted himself completely to being there for Sofia, enjoying every moment by her side as an attempt to rescue something lost over time. He took her to the park for quiet walks, read children's stories, and showed her old photos of the two of them in happy moments with her mother, before the accident. He noticed that Sofia was more attentive, almost alive in her own thoughts, and this filled him with a kind of hope that he had not felt for a long time. One of those afternoons, while they were looking through a photo album together, something surprising happened. Sofia, upon seeing a photo of herself, Raul, and her mother, touched the image with trembling fingers. Her lips moved, and hesitantly, she murmured, "Mom. Dad." The words came out with a fragility that broke Raul's heart, but at the same time, they made him feel something deep and indescribable, an emotion that spread like tears down his face. It was the first time in years that Sofia had articulated something so coherent, something that seemed to come from a place of true remembrance. Without thinking twice, Raul hugged her, holding her close to his chest, and whispered, "I love you, Sofia." In that moment, he realized that the most important thing was not to unravel the mystery of her condition, but to restore the connection, the unbreakable bond between them. Raul realized that, in due time, Sofia would open up and explain what had really happened. But until then, he was willing to wait. His only wish was to enjoy his daughter's company, feeling closer to her than he had in many years. As the weeks passed, Raul saw with joy that Sofia became increasingly expressive and communicative. She began to mumble a few words and gave brief smiles, which brought back a bit of the girl he loved so much. With this growing closeness, Raul decided to stop checking the recordings on the cameras, feeling uncomfortable spying on her in her privacy. He wanted, more than anything, to rebuild a relationship of mutual trust. Without the cameras, he began to interact more directly with her, without needing to subterfuge. One sunny morning, Raul took Sofia to the garden. The sky was clear, and the birds sang all around, filling the air with a serenity that seemed almost unreal. "What a beautiful day, isn't it, my dear?" he commented, smiling as he pushed her wheelchair to a sunny spot. Sofia opened her eyes and murmured something, too low for him to understand, but he knew that this journey of recovery would require patience. When they returned inside, passing by the mirror in the hallway, Raul noticed that Sofia looked at her own reflection with unusual attention, as if she were seeing herself in a new way. "Are you okay, Sofia?" he asked, trying to encourage her. He joked that her hair was still as unruly as it had been when she was a child, and Sofia smiled slightly, reaching out and touching Raul with an affectionate gesture. That small smile and the touch of his daughter touched him deeply. After lunch, as he was taking her to her room for her daily rest, Sofia suddenly grabbed his arm and murmured, "Dad." Her voice sounded weak, like a breath, but Raul could hardly believe it. It was the first time in so many years that she had called him that. "What's the matter, daughter?" he asked, holding back his emotion as he stroked her hand. Sofia pointed to the window, indicating that she wanted to go back to the garden. He smiled, leading her back to the sunny spot near the roses and promising that he would be close if she needed anything. Shortly after, while hanging some clothes on the clothesline, Raul heard a noise coming from the garden. His heart raced, and he ran, afraid that Sofia might have fallen. When he arrived, the scene he found froze him. The wheelchair was turned to the side, and Sofia, with a frightened expression, was leaning against the wall, trying to balance herself on her feet. She looked at him, her face filled with fear and effort. "Daughter, can you walk?" Raul asked, incredulous. Sofia didn't answer. Her legs were visibly shaking, barely supporting the weight of her body. Within seconds, Sofia lost her balance and fell to the ground, unable to hold herself up. Raul ran to support her, helping her sit up carefully. She avoided looking at him, her eyes fixed on the ground, her lips trembling. "Don't worry, honey. I'm not mad," he said, his voice breaking, trying to reassure her. But he needed answers. "Please, Sofia, explain to me what's happening. How could you fake all of this?" Sofia's eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head silently, seemingly unable to meet Raul's gaze. Sofia, between sobs, mumbled an apology, and Raul wrapped her in a hug, as he used to do when she was a child. After a few minutes, when she finally calmed down, she began to tell the story, hesitantly but determinedly. She told about the moment she woke up in the hospital after the accident, completely paralyzed. The doctors told her that she might get better, but as the months passed, there was no sign of progress. The helplessness crushed her, and the compassion of others only increased her pain. One day, however, while she was alone, Sofia realized that she could move her toes. And it was there, in secret, that she decided to try. Slowly, with great effort, she began to train, stretching her legs, trying to strengthen the muscles until she could stand up. Her attempts were timid, but little by little she managed to take a few steps. Raul listened in silence, feeling the weight of the suffering that Sofia had carried alone. As she continued to tell her story, Raul felt a mixture of pain and understanding intertwine in his heart. He now saw not only a daughter who would hide something so painful, but also a young woman who had struggled in secret, fighting against her own body and against the loneliness she had lived in since the accident. The next morning, when he saw his daughter still asleep after a night of such peaceful rest, Raul felt a wave of relief and gratitude. He noticed that Sofia seemed more serene, as if the confession and the new initiatives of support had lifted a weight from her shoulders. When she woke up, Raul greeted her with a warm smile and asked how she was feeling after the physical therapy session. Sofia replied, with a slight sparkle in her eyes, that she was excited, although still tired. "It seems like I woke up to a new life," she murmured, moved. After breakfast, Raul helped Sofia prepare for another walk in the garden, a moment that had become special for both of them. With Raul's support, Sofia took a few short, steady steps, each one representing a genuine effort to reconnect with her body and the life she had limited herself to for so long. It was clear that although she was willing to face the physical and emotional challenges, she still carried remnants of the fear of failure or being judged. Over the weeks, Sofia continued with her physiotherapy and psychotherapy sessions, and Raul noticed her progress with each meeting. Dr. Angela proved to be a fundamental presence for Sofia, guiding her with empathy and reinforcing the importance of forgiving herself and moving forward. Sofia began to express her emotions and fears better, speaking with more confidence and even mentioning old dreams that she had abandoned after the accident. The sessions with Alessandro also became moments of achievement for Sofia. With each stretch, strength exercise and guidance she received, she gained not only physical resistance, but also a confidence that seemed new. Alessandro always encouraged her, praising her effort and dedication, and it was clear that Sofia was determined to overcome her own limits. He adapted the exercises so that she could progress without overexerting herself, and Sofia, despite being tired at the end of each session, always ended with a smile of satisfaction. On a sunny afternoon, after one of the physiotherapy sessions, Sofia gave Raul some exciting news. "Today, I managed to stand up on my own for a few seconds," she said, her eyes shining with pride. Raul could barely contain his emotion and hugged her, telling her how proud he was of her. He could see that Sofia was finally beginning to see herself in a new light, as someone capable and determined to reinvent herself. Every little step forward for Sofia was a shared victory, and over time, Raul noticed that the bond between them was stronger than ever. Their conversations became deeper and more intimate, and Sofia spoke more and more openly about memories of her mother and childhood games. One night, while they were having dinner together, Sofia made an unexpected confession. "Dad, I've been thinking that when I'm fully recovered, I'd like to do something to help other people who are going through similar difficulties." Raul smiled with pride, surprised by his daughter's determination. Sofia's journey to recovery was far from over, but her desire to give back was a clear sign that she had found a new purpose, something that would guide her beyond the physical and emotional challenges. That same night, while Sofia slept, Raul looked out the bedroom window at the stars and felt a peace he had not known for a long time. He realized that, despite the years of suffering and the lies that had kept them apart, they now had something more precious, a future built on trust and love. After the dream, Raul woke up with a sense of serenity he had not felt in years. His wife's loving and grateful gaze still lingered in his mind, warming his heart and reaffirming the certainty that he had done everything he could for Sofia. As he looked around, he noticed that the house was quieter than usual, but in a comforting way, as if everything was in place. In the days that followed, Raul and Sofia began to plan together the next steps for her move. Raul helped her find a small apartment nearby, and the two spent weeks excitedly visiting the place, choosing furniture, and preparing. Sofia was overjoyed at the prospect of finally having her own space, and at the same time, she was grateful for her father's support. On the day of the move, Raul accompanied her to her new home. He helped her arrange the last details and put the objects in their places, including a small plant he had given her as a symbol of growth and rebirth. When everything was ready, Raul looked at Sofia, now in her own home, and hugged her once more, feeling a mixture of pride and nostalgia. "Promise me you'll call me if you need anything, anything at all," he said, squeezing her in his arms. Sofia nodded, holding her father's hands affectionately and assuring him that she would call him whenever she needed him. The months passed, and Sofia flourished in her new phase of life. She continued with her therapies, always keeping in close contact with Raul, who visited her regularly and helped her with whatever she needed. Over time, Sofia met someone special, and the happiness Raul felt when he saw her so confident and complete was the greatest gift he could have wished for. When Sofia announced her engagement, Raul was deeply moved, remembering all the difficulties and the journey they had taken to get to that moment. On their wedding day, as he walked down the aisle with Sofia, he felt immensely grateful for the transformation they had both experienced together, a process that required patience, faith, and unconditional love. Raul, now at peace with the vivid dream he had had with his wife, felt complete. He knew that over the years he had managed to honor the love and commitment they both had for their family, and with that, Sofia had achieved the freedom and happiness she had always deserved. In that moment, everything made sense. Love, resilience, and dedication became a legacy that Sofia would carry with her every step and into each new chapter of her life. If you liked the story, I'm sure that one of the videos that is here on the screen will move you too. But before you click, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our next videos. A big hug and see you in the next story.